My name is Harpreet Kaur. My member name is Mohammad Zahan Zeeb. Today's our topic is growing GDP in poor countries, the case of Ethiopia. Our introduction in the case study, we are highlighting the long-term GDP underperformance of Ethiopia, which is low despite extensive economic performance. This is one of the key reasons why SMEs, while economic perform, have over 80% of employees on their books are weak, undersupported, and highly informal. GDP growth is not just numbers; it's the drive of improved public services, poverty reduced, infrastructure, innovations, and jobs. Moving to the next slide is aim and objectives. To investigate the obstacles hindering GDP growth is Ethiopia, with a focus on underdeveloped SMEs and its purpose trailed evidence based strategies and government investigation drawings from successful international SME framework and models. We have five key objectives: identify and analyze the core structural, international and financial barrier, limited GDP growth, and SME development in Ethiopia. Examine best price from countries like Vietnam, Bangladesh, and Guinea in promoting and evaluate the stability and of these international approaches of Ethiopia. Recommended actionable strategies of the Ethiopia government and its development partners to strategies SME capacity, assess the long-term impact of SME drive economics policies on poverty reductions, employment generations, and reliance to economic stokes in Ethiopia. My next slide is research problem and why this topic matter. Research problem is the question we want to search under the that Ethiopia still linear with the low GDP growth and deep strict poverty despite its potential and previous perform. While SME are promoted in employment, they are neither given and support credit availability, infrastructure, nor training to excel. Why this topic matters. With the issue to tropical GDP growth is among the strongest tool to fight poverty and improve living standards. More GDP facilities, the government is collective high taxation, investigations and infrastructure expenses and become more sustainable. Without the growth of SMEs, Ethiopia potential will remain unrealized. Or healthy SME actors could provide jobs. My slide fifth is impact of low GDP and historical concept. Impact of low GDP. Ethiopia low GDP has a direct effect on the people and development. There exists abject poverty with millions lacking access to fundamental services such as clean water, electricity, healthcare, and poor education. Moreover, youth unemployed in high and even those employed are largely in low income, informal work. Innovation and technology are scarce opportunities, and the absence of infrastructure regards business development further. Lastly, agriculture over depends make and country unvariable to dots food deficits and price velocity in the global markets thus regards its development further. Historical context. The economic journey of Ethiopia has not been smooth. Ethiopia transitions to be more market-driven economy following the top line of the remains 1991. It had the first rising GDP from 2004 to 2015 with a double figure number at the time mostly. Because of government spending infrastructure, the growth was not sustainable or exclusive though. Politics under particular the war integrity and the COVID-19 pandemic has politics in the economic since 2015. My next slide is Ethiopia in numbers and root cause of the problem. Ethiopia in numbers. To put the challenging into representative. Ethiopia is the home to the more than 120 million people, and it is the second most populous nation in Africa. Its the per capita GDP is still below 1,000, well below the Africa average. SMEs generate more than 80% of employment but are largely informal and have restricted access to infrastructure, finance, or sport. With the no sea, Ethiopia has an export logistic problem with the country's trade. Its digital infrastructure to is behind, particularly in rural communities where the bulk of the people live on do businesses. My slide is root causes of the problem. The cause of the low GDP and risk SMEs in Ethiopia are multifactorially interlinked. Structurally, there is a limited roads, electricity, and internet, particularly beyond urban limits. Industrially, SMEs primarily encounter or the over-complex bureaucracy, policy, consistency, and corporation. Financially, credit is extremely limited, and lives on the collaboration are exclusively high from small entrepreneurs. The education system lack entrepreneurial or innovation, sports, and digital competency is rare. Lastly, external stocks such as increasing debt, inflation, and climate efforts keep investor confidence level low and discounts long-term horizon thinking. My last eight slide is stakeholders impact. Spillover effects of Ethiopia low GDP impact all major stakeholders such as citizen experience, reduced income, employment, insecurity, and limited career of person. Then SMEs are stuck in the informal economy and unable to scale, expense, or innovation for lack of resources and facilitation. Thirdly, government loses impact tax revenues when less scopes of investment and development. Further, foreign investors shun Ethiopia because of the high risk, thus containing for direct investment and private capital. Consequently, foreign aids agents have to keep bridge the gap with the minorities sports interest of the foresting long-term sustainable government.
Hello, myself Mohammed Janzeb, and I will talk about key influencers and change agents. Plainly stated, to address these issues, several key factors must take the lead. There are roles at the national level undertaken by Ministry of Innovation and Technology and Ministry of Trade in SME development and regulatory reforms. At the international level, the World Bank and African Development Bank offer financing, technical assistance, and guidance on different projects. NGOs and local actors develop SME capacity, and information is encouraged. We also hear of Kenya, Vietnam, and Bangladesh, where SME ecosystems have been at the center of economic transformations. The next one is theoretical frameworks. Here we'll apply Porter's diamond model. We applied Porter's diamond model in order to measure Ethiopian national competitiveness within framework of SME development. Ethiopia is performing badly in all four of determining areas. The factor conditions such as infrastructure and finance are not strong. Demand conditions are constrained by low purchasing power of consumers. Supporting industries such as logistics or supply chains are poorly developed, for rivalry and structure are suppressed by excessive regulations and lack of competition. The framework suggests that systematic weaknesses impede SME competitiveness, which restrain Ethiopia potential GDP. The second was institutional theory. The institutional theory talk about we can account for why policy reform is slow and ineffective in Ethiopia. There are no strong formal institutions, rule of law, transparency, stable policies, informal situation govern instead, such as community leading and non-formal education, which cannot be replicated on a large scale. That is, international SME model cannot be replicated directly. Lastly, reform has to start from institutionalizing Ethiopia, from government to regulation and public-private partnership. The next one is analytical tools. So here we use SWOT analysis. This analysis of the Ethiopian SME sector flags four areas of priority. The one is strength, after that weaknesses, opportunities, and the last one is threats. First, the strength, it's about huge and young labor force and urged intentions to transform. The second one is weakness, limited access to finance infrastructure, deficiencies, and low rates of digital. The third one is opportunities, enhanced internet in agro processing, renewable energy, and mobile banking. And the last one is threats, political instability, climate change, and the currency volatility. And the next one is best practices Vietnam and in Bangladesh. Vietnam used government-driven industrial banking planning to grow SMEs, especially in exports and manufacturing. Bangladesh focused on manforce like German Bank to empower rural entrepreneurship and support textile SMEs. Both countries achieved GDP growth by combining policy stability with SME incentives. The key takeaway is that long-term planning, financial access, and industry clustering can transform low-income economies if properly executed. Kenya is a strong example of how mobile technology can drive SME success. With M-Pesa, even rural communities gain access to finance and digital trade. Kenya also invested in youth innovation hubs and build public-private partnership to support technology entrepreneurship. While Ethiopia digital infrastructure is behind, this case shows how financial and digital inclusion can unlock new SME potential. Now I will talk about adaptation for Ethiopia and strategic policy recommendations. If we talk about Ethiopia, what adaptation were used? While these global strategies offer promise, Ethiopia must adapt them to its own constraints. Being landlocked restricts export logistics and digital infrastructure is limited, especially in rural areas. However, Ethiopia can pilot regional solutions. Microfinance make model from Bangladesh can support informal SMEs. Agro processing clusters based on Vietnam's industrial zones can work near rural markets, and mobile finance like Kenya M-Pesa can be rolled out gradually. So a modular realistic approach will yield the best results. The next term is strategic policy recommendations. We propose the following strategies. For instance, set up SME focused industrial hubs, especially in agro processing, expand access to credit over microfinance with mobile and rural outreach, then invest in vocational and digital training for youth and entrepreneurship. Now I will talk about short and long-term directions. Short-term priority of Ethiopia is simple, scalable, and repeat reform with the capacity to release SME potential. The encompass business registration process, streamlining, elimination of bureaucratic formality, and easing access to finance via microfinance and mobile phone banking platforms. Particularly in rural areas, increasing the mobile financial services around the Kenya M-Pesa model can improve financial inclusions. And now I will talk about the conclusions. All in all, low GDP in Ethiopia is both directly because of underdeveloped SME and systematic economic limitations. Our discoveries are that the solution to exist but will need to be adapted to technique, institution, and geographic context of Ethiopia. Economic development is not merely an economic imperative, it's a poverty reduction technique, a mechanism for job creation and long-term insurance policy. We can calling on the Ethiopian government and development partner to unite hand and invest in future vision of inclusive SMEs. And these are the recommendations. We have collect the data. This is the presentation we have all about our data. Thank you so much.